Hi, everybody, and welcome to our week number 2 live stream for my 8-week class. I see a bunch of you getting logged in the chat. Can someone let me know in the chat if you can hear and see me okay? Everything looks good on my end, but just to make sure that you can hear and see me just fine with like a thumbs up or a yes or something like that would be amazing. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm sorry to have changed the time. So this is again is for my 8-week intro psych class that started last week, and we are in week number 2. Just to put that out there, I do have another class that started this week, and they are at 8 o'clock. So we will be at 7 o'clock from here on out, and there will be some weeks where I kind of move the day around, but I'm going to try and stick to this 7 o'clock time. So nice to have you all. Thank you so much. If you're joining me for the first time, this is Twitch. I'm Elisa Setmire. I'm your instructor. I know a lot of you were on here with me last week, but hopefully we will have even more people on this week. So what I want to do, since we are in week number 2, you haven't had anything graded yet because we're still in that first 2-week period. But I want to focus on some reminders for what we have due this week, mainly focusing on that first exam. I know there was a lot of anxiety about the test last week, so I want to make sure everyone is feeling as good about it as you can. So we'll talk a lot about the exam, the study guide, where to take it, how to prepare, all that kind of stuff, along with some quick reminders about what's going on for this week. So before I get started, are there any questions right off the bat? If you weren't here last week, you can communicate with me in the chat. If you put a question in there, I will see it, and I will definitely try to answer it as quickly as possible. So if you think of anything, feel free to put it in there. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll head over to Canvas together. And we are in the middle of weeks 1 and week 2, right? So remember that you have access to 2 weeks of content at a time. So weeks 1 and 2, let me click on week number 2 here, and it'll take us right where we are. And traditionally, what I will do during these live streams is focus on the week that we are in. But let's go back for just a minute. Remember that last week, week number 1 opened up. And every week you will have 2 chapters to read, complete the lecture video, 2 discussions. There'll be an optional extra credit like this one here, and I'll talk about that again when we get to it later. And then we're in week number 2, so same thing, right? 2 chapters, 2 discussions, an extra credit, and then on that second week we always have an exam. So the topics that we're looking at this week, again, I'm going to assume that you've either done week 1 or you were joining me last week, so we'll focus on week 2. This week we're looking at biological psychology and sensation and perception. So those are our 2 topics for this week, chapters 3 and 4. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to the ebook site, and remember that the chapters for these text lectures are on here, right? So there's chapters at the top up here. And so you're going to want to read chapter 3 and chapter 4 in the ebook. And then you'll also want to go through my lecture and lecture video. So remember, you kind of have 3 things to do for each chapter, right? You read the chapter in the book, go through the lecture, and watch the lecture video. And yes, there's a little bit of overlap, but hopefully in the end, that will just reinforce the materials and concepts. So remember that the lectures are in like a 5-page format, a little 5-tab format up at the top. The first page always being objectives and summary, and you can listen to it or you can read it, totally up to you. The second page going to be beyond the book. This one I have some really helpful little tutorials related to what we're covering. There's one here about the 3 types of neurons, one about action potentials and neurotransmitters, a little video about the 10% myth of the brain, which might be helpful for the discussion this week. In pop culture, some things that are linked to in popular culture, a little more challenging with this chapter, but there's still a few. There's a little clip from The Walking Dead, some stuff from Pinky and the Brain, the Animaniacs, a little bit about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge and how that relates to motor neurons. On the 4th page, it's always going to be the key terms and review. So here are all the terms that you need to know from this chapter for the exam. And then finally, on the last page, you'll always have application. Now that I've read through this chapter, how could I apply it to my life in some way? And so click on everything that's in there, explore any links, watch any videos. All of it together is going to help you to understand the content. You'll do that for chapter 3 and 4, and then don't forget to also watch the lecture videos. And these are me lecturing to some PowerPoint slides like I would do if you were taking this with me in person. So some of them are YouTube videos, and some of them are Zoom links. Yeah, sometimes depending on your internet connection, it might come in and out. So if that ever happens to you, you can always log out and log back in. It's probably the easiest way to deal with it. Super high tech, I know. Somebody asked, wait, is that the SG? I'm assuming you mean the study guide. We'll get to that in a little bit. We haven't talked about it yet. Okay, so remember for this week, in terms of the reading, read chapter 3, read chapter 4, go through the lecture and the lecture video. You also have 2 discussions. So the 2 discussions, you'll do that every week. These are related to chapters 3 and 4. So let's take a look at those together. We're working our way down toward the test here. And remember, every time it'll be this same format where you have the instructions up at the top, a little video that I made, and then the prompt, right? So you can expect that format every time. So make sure you watch my little introduction video. Make sure you're detailed in your responses, show off your knowledge and comprehension. Think about these as like little mini papers, right? You're kind of showing off that you understand and can apply the materials. You're also going to read through a minimum of 5 of your classmates' responses and then reply to 1 of them. So your discussion responses are worth 15 points in total, 13 for your responses to my questions right here, and then 2 for your responses to a classmate. So the chapter 3 one, the discussion 3 here, is about neurons and biological psychology in the brain. So what are neurons and why are they important? Referencing the specific chain of events and processes involved, describe how neurons communicate with each other. Then you're going to read these little articles related to the 10% myth of the brain, and then you'll describe the origins and beginnings of the myth, and provide 2 reasons why we know that it is a myth or that it is false. And when you're ready to answer that, you'll hit reply, and you can see Natalie here. Oh, it looks beautiful. Look at that beautiful length on your discussion. I love it. I look forward to reading it. And then Ryan, right, again, same, right? So looks like just by looking at these very roughly, it looks like a lot of you are really answering them thoroughly. I love that. Thank you so much. And what you'll see is that after this week passes, so remember everything from weeks 1 and 2 is due by this Sunday night. So Sunday the 25th at 11:59 p.m. So on Monday next week, what I will typically do is grade all of the discussions. I'll bring your exam scores over, and then I'll send out an email with some general feedback. So you can expect to have your scores from weeks 1 and 2 on Monday once the deadline has passed. So that's discussion 3, and then let's look at discussion 4 really quickly. Discussion 4 is related to sensation and perception. So again, like usual, right, same formatting where you have the instructions and a video. I look like I'm like up to no good in that video. But you have a little instructions here, reminders of all the same things I just told you. And then this one, you're going to read a little article about smell and memory. And you're going to do a little bit of an experiment. So have fun with this. I think it's kind of a fun thing to do. You're going to gather a small sample of some items, things like coffee beans, tea, cinnamon, chocolate, chapstick, a scented candle, grass, dirt, crayons, Play-Doh, a fresh herb or fruit, and then maybe choose like a couple of uncommon things that are maybe unique to you or kind of random around your house or apartment or whatever. And you're going to take a moment with each of these items, close your eyes, and smell them. Allow yourself to really fully experience the smell, try and clear your mind, and you're going to see if you experience any like memories or associations. Now, really common items are going to bring up, kind of a bunch of different things, but if you pick some uncommon ones, it might just lead to a smell memory. And so you're going to talk about which items you responded to the least or the most, any other items you tried or would suggest. Then the really big one here is you're going to talk about what are smell memories and why do they occur. You can get the answers to these in the textbook and then also in these articles. And then finally, how can you use this knowledge in your personal life in some way? Oh no, don't be nervous, right? I know a lot of you are nervous about the exam. I promise you I'm going to take lots of time to talk about it. If you have any questions, you can ask. Exams are always, anxiety inducing, but you get to use your notes and your book. You really should be just fine. So don't worry. Yeah, the exams are always a little bit of anxiety, but you're going to be okay. Okay? All right. Yes, so I will talk about all of that in just a minute. We're almost there. We're still talking about the discussions. The next thing is the exam. I promise. We're almost there. So for week number 2, right? Make sure that you complete all of those things, just like with week number one, right? So read the chapters, the lectures, the lecture videos, and the two discussions. And then every 2 weeks, every second week, you will have an exam. And the exams are all on the ebook site, the same place you took that mandatory orientation quiz. And if you click on the exam one link right here, it'll actually tell you that. It'll say right here, don't forget this is on the ebook site, so you can go to the ebook site here, or hopefully you have it bookmarked at this point since you're using it so frequently. And then you'll notice that underneath the exam, I've given you a study guide. So let's talk about some kind of general stuff, and then we'll go through the study guide. So if you're on the ebook site, all of the exams are up here at the top where it says exams. Okay, so if you click on that little exam tab up at the top, and then you scroll down a little bit to where it says exams, exam instructions for exams 1 through 4. So let's go through this, right? So with every single exam that you'll take in here, you have 75 minutes to complete the exam. So an hour and 15 minutes. And I'll tell you, this is absolutely plenty of time, right? It's more than enough time. The average amount of time that people usually take is right around 59 to 61 minutes. So right around an hour. Now, some people do take the whole time and some people take a little bit less, but you have 75 minutes. There are typically about 70-something questions on the exam, so it's roughly a minute per question. Now, some of the questions are true-false, so those ones should be really fast for you. But if you don't know the answer to something, you could always skip it and then come back to it. That way you're not worrying or like wasting your time. Once you start the exam, you only get one attempt. So make sure that you're ready and you're organized before you begin. So what I mean by ready and organized, a couple of things. First, make sure you have 75 minutes to spare. If you know you only have an hour, that's not a good time, right? So make sure you have 75 minutes, make sure that you have good internet, make sure that you have a quiet place to take the exam, right? All of those things are going to set you up for success. Try not to wait till Sunday night. Inevitably, right? This is always the case. If you wait till Sunday night, your internet's going to crash, your computer's going to crash, something's going to go wrong. It always does. So try and take this, Friday, Saturday. You can take it earlier in the week even. You have 2 weeks to do this. So try and not wait till the very last minute. The other thing that I would recommend with this kind of jumps on this third bullet, you can use your notes, you can use the book, you can use anything at your disposal on the exam, but if you're trying to look up each answer, you're going to run out of time. And this is purposeful, okay? If you took this exam with me in person, you wouldn't have any notes, you wouldn't have your book, and it would be more than enough time. But what happens sometimes with exams online is people don't study, and so if you're trying to understand the question, look it up, and find the answer, you're going to run out of time. So what I would really, really recommend for you is to over-prepare for the first exam because you don't know what to expect. And you can always dial it back on the next one. If you find that you did too much, right, you don't want to have a moment during the exam where you wish you had done more. But if you find that you did too much, you could always do a little less next time. And I'm going to talk about preparing with the study guide in a moment. But what I would really recommend is that you go through and use the study guide, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. A couple other things, you must save your answers. Remember when we were looking at that mandatory orientation quiz? They all need to be that gold kind of orange color and saved, or it will not count them. So make sure that you're watching the clock. Make sure that you're saving your answers, answers as you go along. And when you're done, you'll click I am finished and you'll submit it and it'll give you a score right away. Remember that the scores do not come over into Canvas right away, but I will be bringing them over once the deadline has passed. So if you don't see your score in Canvas, but it's on here in your temporary gradebook on here, you're fine, okay? Everything bad happens when you take exams? No, not here, right? Good things are gonna happen, right? And what I will tell you is my personal philosophy with exams is I will never trick you. You'll never have a trick question. I think my exams, if anything, are probably on the easy side. If you are studying and preparing and working on the material, you're going to be just fine. People tend to do very well on them. And I would be thrilled if every single one of you got an A. So hopefully nothing bad happens. I just want to show you one last thing here before we talk more about preparing. So there is a little practice exam here. It doesn't have anything to do with content, but it might help you with just formatting. So I just want to remind you that when you're taking the exam, remember that there's going to be a little clock that shows up right here. So be mindful of the clock. When your time runs out, it will stop you. So make sure that, again, you can skip questions. Let's say I don't know this one, I can skip to number 2, but you want to make sure that every single one is like an orange color, right? So this one, let me hit that, and then I hit save, and then see how it turns orange, right? And so you want to do that with each question. Make sure every single question is orange, right? And at that point, you can hit I am finished and submit for a grade. I make the exams, right? So the exams are something that I wrote and then were uploaded to the ebook site. So the exams are based on the lectures and based on the textbook. I wrote every single question personally, and so they should all be very clear and very related to what we have covered. Again, my hope with these is that you all do really well. That I'm rewarding you for your reading and preparation, not punishing you. So again, when you finish, you'll get a score right away. And it doesn't come over to Canvas, but I will bring it over when the week ends. Okay. So some other things about the exam. Like I said, they're mainly multiple choice. There's some true-false questions and some matching questions. Nothing short answer. So true, false, matching, and multiple choice. And I have given you a study guide. So if we go back to Canvas for a moment, right here underneath exam number 1 is the study guide for the exam. So if you click on study guide number 1, it's going to bring up the study guide, right? And it has every single term that you need to know for the test. So this exam, exam 1, is on the first 2 weeks, which is chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if it is on here, make sure that you know it. If it's not on here, you don't need to worry about it. So make sure you know all these terms from chapter 1, all these from 2, 3, and 4. And this one also has 2 diagrams. I've given you the exact same diagrams that are on the exam, but make sure that you're able to label these or match them to items on the exam. And if you know everything that's on here, again, you will be in great shape. So let me share with you, I am one of those like meticulous straight A students. I'm one of those meticulous straight A students that never gets anything less than an A and is like completely bummed out if I miss 1 or 2 questions on a test. So if it were me, what I would do is I would go through and I would type out or write out, whatever one works for you, each term that is on the study guide, and then I would have it printed or typed out or written in front of me when I go to take the exam. What that means is I have every single term on here like done, written out, organized, and ready to go. So if I'm taking the exam and I get to a question and I don't remember psychiatrist versus clinical versus counseling, I don't have to, in my mind, go like, was that in the book? Was that in the lecture? Where did I find that? And you're searching everywhere for it, working and like wasting valuable time. Instead, you could go right to your study guide next to you and be like, oh, there, and it can remind you. So if you were to type or write this out and have it in front of you, there's really no reason you shouldn't do fantastically. Definitely study and prepare a little bit. You could make flashcards if that works for you. Again, that's what I would do because I'm a meticulous, like straight A student. You can, prepare it to your level of comfort. But again, I would recommend over preparing for the first exam, and then you could always dial it back if you didn't need to do so much for the next one. Someone said, would it be advisable to read through the study guide before reading the chapters so you know what to look for? If it were me, I like to read the chapters like very broadly for like a broad summary and understanding. But when you're going through and studying, you only need to study what's on here. So when you're going through the lecture or watching the lecture videos, if I talk about the roots of psychology, you might make a note on that, right? Or the demographics of early psychologists, make a note on that. So rather than taking notes on everything, I would say you only really need to focus on taking notes on the things on here. But when you're reading the chapter, I think it's nice to read the whole thing and get all of that information rather than like little bits. I think that would make it a little choppy. But it's up to you. Inevitably, whatever works best for you is going to be probably your best strategy. Are there any other questions for now about the exam? Is there anything else I can answer for you? I know you're all nervous and anxious. As I said, like everything is very straightforward. I think, if any of you have taken the exam already, I'm sure you would agree. It is very sensical and clear. If you have written out or typed out or studied these things on here, you'll be fine. Okay? Just to be on the safer side, will the test be based off the reading or your lectures as well? It's both. So it's based off of the textbook and the lectures, right? So my lectures come from the textbook, right? They're inspired by the textbook. And then the lecture videos, they're all linked together. So all three of them are very directly linked. So there might be some things in here that are only in the book or only in the lecture, which is why I've given you the terms. So it's better that you hunt for them ahead of time than try to hunt for them during the exam, right? Then you definitely are going to be short on time. I think I just spilled water all over myself. It's been a long day. We've been painting. Are there any other questions? You overstudy, you feel like you do too much work. I'm always been that way, but you know what? I would rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. I think there's nothing worse than having that moment during a test where you wish you had done more and it's too late. So I think, over-preparing now, if you find that it was too much, do a little less next time. We have 4 exams in here. So by the time you hit exam 4, you'll be a pro, right? You'll know exactly what to do, and then the class will be over. Let's see. So will there be a final exam with all the chapters? Nope. So there will be 4 individual exams based on those 2 weeks each. So there's no cumulative final. There's a cumulative paper at the end where you'll go back and reflect on some things, but not a cumulative test. Okay, let's see. So some terms that will be only found in the lectures. Yes. So you might, some of these might not be in, I think they should all be in the book, right? Pretty much everything is in the book. But for the most part, you might find some of these things covered more in the lecture versus the book or vice versa, which is why you need to do all 3 components to be successful. No, it's based off of both, right? So everything should correlate very strongly. Again, because I wrote the textbook, what I did is I wrote the book and then I have lectures that are based on the book and the lecture videos and everything. They should all correlate together very strongly. So what you should see is there's not a lot of disparity between the 3. They overlap, if anything, which hopefully is helpful rather than obnoxious. So yeah, everything should be kind of going together very nicely. So remember, if you're under week number 2, right, the exam is on the ebook site. Here's the study guide right underneath it. And I really would recommend that you go through and write out or type out every term on there. And again, that's completely up to you. But if you have that done, you're going to be in a really good spot. How long did it take me? The book took me, gosh, like 1.5 years to write. Yeah, but very exciting. It was exciting to have it done. And I wanted to point out one other thing as well. So I have a study guide here for you. But if you're on the ebook site, up here at the top, there is a little spot where it says additional resources that you can click on. It's kind of behind my video, sorry, but it's up here at the top right. There are some flashcards that are on here. They're not very exciting, but you can look at those if that's helpful for like quizzing yourself. The other thing that's on here is there's a couple of test yourself things that I put together for this newer edition of the book. There's only a handful of them, but let's say, for example, you want to try this chapter 3 one on parts of a neuron, right? So this is the exact diagram or a very similar diagram for the exam. So let's say I want to be like, oh, okay, let's see if I know where the dendrites go, right? So you're going to drop it there. Or let's say, do I know where the nucleus goes, right? Or the terminal buttons, or the axon, or the myelin sheath, right? So let's see, we can put them all in their spots, and then we can hit check our answers. It's a good thing that I got them all right. It'd be really embarrassing if I didn't, right? And then I successfully completed the activity. You can also do this down here. There's organization of the nervous system. Let's say that you want to try and figure out which parts of the nervous system go where, and you can check it. Lobes of the brain, let's say you want to check this, right? So you could go frontal lobe, right? Parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and so on. So these little quizzes on here are things that I put together that might be nice little practice things. They're completely optional, but there's a few of them, and especially with the diagrams, right? It's kind of a nice way to practice. So those are up here at the top where it says additional resources. I like that you like them. So it says right here, chapter 3, 5, 6, 11, and 14. Right, so those are the chapters that have some resources with them. So for now, you only need to worry about the one for chapter 3, which has some stuff on the brain and neurons and so on. And then there's one for 5 when we get there next week. Oh, you can do them as many times as you want, right? Yeah, you can go through. If you get it wrong, it'll let you know and you can retry it. But they might be nice little practice activities to help you if you would like. So just to point that out as well. The only other thing that you have this week, I will give you that extra credit question here in a moment, and I will post the recording of the live stream probably later this evening or worst case tomorrow. But those are the big things for the moment. Are there any other exam questions? I promised I would spend lots of time on it. I want to make sure you're all feeling as good as you can. Anything else I can answer about the exam for you before I move on to some reminders and the extra credit question and all that? Yes, one attempt, right? So you can attempt those practice activities as many times as you would like, but the exam you only get one attempt, yes. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So I have a couple of quick reminders for you, and then I will give you the extra credit question. So first reminder, and I will give you this one every single week, if you could please take a moment, if you haven't done this already, there are 84 of you in this class and only 16 of you are subscribed. So if you are able to figure out the subscription for Twitch, I would really, really appreciate it. As I said, what it does is it saves me a lot of time. Instead of having to write down your name, I can just download a list. So if you are able to figure that out, I would really appreciate it. You only need to do it twice because it's an 8-week class. So if you aren't subscribed, make sure you put your first and last name in the chat at some point before we're done today. If you are subscribed, you don't have to worry about it. For the exam, you'll be matching, yeah. So for the exam, you'll be matching from a list, right? Rather than having to type it in, you'll just be matching it from a list. Like it'll be multiple choice, and you'll match it from the list, okay? The other reminder that I have for you, so our live stream next week will be on, let me put this here in the chat. Oops, okay. Our week number 3 live stream will be on Tuesday, June 27th at 7 o'clock p.m. Okay. So next week, our live stream will be on Tuesday. I'm doing it on Tuesday because I'm going camping on Wednesday, and I don't know what my internet will be like up there. I probably will have internet, but I don't want to risk it. So our live stream for week number 3 will be on Tuesday night next week at 7 o'clock p.m. If you're able to join me live, fantastic. If you are watching this later as a recording, remember that if you are subscribed to my channel on Twitch, you can still answer the extra credit question to get those points. So that's another advantage of figuring it out. I know it's a few minutes to link all the steps together, but there are quite a few advantages for you in doing that. So if you can take a moment to do that and you're watching this later, you can still answer the question on Canvas to get those extra credit points. The average grade for my class, so my class that just finished, their average score, I want to say it was 89%. It was just shy of an A. There were lots of A's, lots and lots and lots of A's, but the average score was just shy of an A, barely. It was like 80, I want to say it was like 89.6%. So a lot of people do really well on the exams. And again, as long as you studied and prepared, you should be in wonderful, wonderful shape. So you could tell your friend that is the average. Good, yeah, calm, take a deep breath, right? You're going to do fine on these, right? The exams aren't tricky, they aren't miserable. I've taken my fair share of miserable exams. I have test anxiety, and so they should be very straightforward and very logical, right? Oh, thank you. That's kind of you to say, right? I know exams are stressful, right? So, take a deep breath. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time, good internet. If you study listening to music, listen to music during the exam. Have a snack, have a cup of coffee, whatever helps you, right? That's the nice thing about taking exams online, right? On an online class is you can kind of set up your environment however it will help you, and that's going to make you feel better, right? So whatever it is, if it's having your cat right next to you or having a cup of coffee or a snack or music or whatever, do that, and that should hopefully help you a little bit, okay? So let me give you the extra credit question for this week, which I wrote down ahead of time just to save myself the effort. And this should be something that also helps you with the discussion this week. So this is the week number 2 Twitch extra credit question. And I'm going to put it here in the chat, and I'll also read it as well. So the extra credit question for this week is, what is meant by electrochemical communication? Describe both pieces of how neurons communicate with each other. So, what is meant by electrochemical communication? Describe both pieces, the electrical piece and the chemical piece, of how neurons communicate. And I see that there's another question. I'll get to that in a minute. Let me just finish this train of thought here. So, if you would like to answer that question to try and get those points, since we're in week 2, you'll click on optional Twitch extra credit number 2. So, click on that link. And then up at the top, click on Start Assignment. And then you can type your response in the box. And as soon as you are happy with it, hit Submit, get the little confetti burst, and anything else, thumbs up in there as well. Remember, these are worth 2 points. It's due by Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. And if you are watching this later as a recording, the only way to get those points is to answer the question and also be subscribed to my channel so that I know that you watched it. If you're joining me live, then you've met that first requirement by putting your name in the chat or being subscribed. Okay, so those are all the things to cover. If you haven't done week number 1, get going on week 1. If you've already done week 1, work on week 2. Everything from weeks 1 and 2. Everything from weeks 1. Like you said, Ryan, don't put your answer in the chat. I love it. Like you even remembered that it was Ryan. That's funny. Poor Ryan's been called out. Yes, you're gonna answer it here, right? Not in the chat. I love that. That's gonna be the ongoing joke for our 8 weeks together. Ryan, no. So you give me a good laugh on that one. So remember that everything from weeks 1 and 2 is due by this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So good luck on the exam. You're going to do okay. Prepare, study, you'll be fine. Right? Forget Karen. Now we're going on Ryan. No, that's okay. Ryan was very ready, and I love it and appreciate it, Ryan. It's wonderful. So, but answer it on here. Get going on everything. Again, I will grade all of weeks 1 and 2 probably on Monday next week after the deadline is passed. If you run into any issues or think of any questions, I'm going to hang out for a few weeks. I'm going to hang out for a few minutes right here. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, you can always email me. No, I think Ryan did beautifully, right? We're not picking on Ryan. So I will hang out for a little bit if you have questions. Otherwise, good luck. Get going on the materials. And I, again, will hang out. I'm going to minimize my video just so I'm not staring at myself. But if you do have a moment to figure out the subscription on Twitch, or if you have any other questions, I'm here and I'm happy to help. Otherwise, have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves and good luck on the first exam. Next week when I see you, you're all going to be like, it was fine, I did okay, right? I can feel it. So you too, have a wonderful rest of your day, wonderful week. I'm going to minimize this. Well, here, I'll answer this and then I'll minimize it. For the matching, I'm just noticing the diagrams you put on the study guide. Are those the only diagrams? Yes, so only what's on the study guide. So if you know the ones that are on the study guide, you will be in perfect shape. You don't need to worry about anything other than what is on the study guide. Okay? So I'm going to minimize this, but I will hang out for a little while still. I'm still here if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for those of you who joined me live. I love it. It's wonderful to have your company, and I will look forward to seeing you on Tuesday next week. Thank you as well. Have a wonderful day, wonderful week. You too. You as well. You could definitely take it before then, and I would actually really recommend that you do take it earlier. I mentioned earlier that taking the exam on Sunday, it just always feels like it increases your chances of problems. So take it today, take it tomorrow, take it Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, anytime. The deadline is Sunday night, but you can take it at any point during the 2-week period of time. You're welcome. See you next week.